Hey everybody, this is Perch, and Joe and I are we've had a few drinks, right?
Yeah, we've had a couple of drinks in our time.
Yeah, I'm happy to have an adult beverage. Anybody who describes it that way is a douche. I like drinks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, so there's this whole conversation about barcon. I talked briefly about, but some people still seem kind of confused. What is barcon? So Joe, what is barcon?
barcon's different in different conventions. I think there's got to be something said about that
Hmm.
because if you do like a small show, there's kind of like maybe the after party or something like that everyone goes, like everyone drinks in like the one hotel where that
Yeah.
lobby where or lounge where they have it. But if you do a bigger show, like let's say BarCon in like New York Comic Con, for example, that show's a lot different because it's all the way the hell out there away from like where the bars are.
Yeah.
And then different publishers and different people have different bars they go to. Like New York Comic Con, for being the biggest or second biggest show in the country, is not nearly as organized with that. Like there's usually like, oh, there's going to be a bar con thing for, usually in like the Hell's Kitchen area or like around closer to maybe Penn Station as well. But like Image used to have like a very specific, here's the Image party, and then the Marvel party's here, and then the DC party's here. And usually there was, if you knew, like if there was like a post on Facebook, or there was something like a party people were talking about,
Yeah.
that's the loser party,
Exactly.
because no one's going to actually be the, eventually, once like the DC or Marvel dinners are over and they're unwinding, a couple of people from those will wind up at the loser party.
Yes.
But
The
if
sucker. Yeah.
the loser sucker party,
Yeah.
a lot of people will go to, and that's for a lot of the bigger cons. There's always the loser bar party, and then
Hmm.
there's the one where it's like, oh, this is where these people are going. So yeah, the ones that are cool aren't posted about,
Right.
and then at the show, it'll be like, where the Marvel party is going to be. Like you have to be on the list and know someone to get you in, but it's going to be at this bar, so you gotta go then. And I was at the last Marvel party at New York, and it's that's where everyone is.
Yeah.
It's like CB's there. And a lot of editorial, a lot of the big names, a lot of people who used to work there. I was sitting with like Carl Potts and Jim Salicrup and Martha Thomases and some other people last time I was at that. But yeah, that's where you go. Or if you're working with other publishers, they'll take you out somewhere. You'll go there. Like when I had a Vault book coming out, the Vault people are like, oh, let's all go here. We'll hang out. We'll get drinks. Or you doing something with TKO. Oh, we'll go out. We'll meet some other people. We'll get drinks. Like it's more complicated. Like the way it's being talked about now is like there's the one bar that everyone goes to, and it's true with a few cons, but that's not every con. And that's certainly, like, the bigger cons are the ones where editors are actually at. A lot of these smaller cons, editors don't actually attend.
Right. It's I think the way I was trying to phrase it, I've been to certainly a lot of the after parties and drinking different things for comics, but also for technology. I'm trying to put in perspective, if you're not in the comic industry and you work in your company and you go to a show like CES in Vegas, it's very similar. It's a tech show. You have the convention. There's no good bars in Vegas around that show, and everybody disperses to the various invite only, the Sony party or the Microsoft party or the Apple party or wherever it happens to be, the Google party. And generally, like those are big kind of structural events that go on. And then there's the cool parties that are in smaller venues, people going to rent out a club somewhere in the Venetian or often in the Wynn. And that's where the real kind of excitement happens. That's the party you want to be at, but it's hard to get into those.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you got into some.
Yeah.
what happened? Like, do you basically everybody gets to gets jobs? Like you're just there and you just bring your resume and they hire you and you immediately get a book. Is that what happens?
Here's what actually happens, and these are, I'm probably going to say some super basic things that you're going to be like, oh, of course. And
Mhm.
you go because you need to be seen.
Right.
I think I forget, like there are different people who have done different analysis that say things like, someone has to like meet you like something like 7 times or something like that
Mhm.
before,
Yeah.
you have to have X amount of passes. So, if you see someone, at the Marvel booth, then you see him at the, after party, then you see him again, and then you do another show, and then you see him again at the booth, and you see him again at the bar. You eventually build up these rapports. I think the discussion of networking is done like it's from a bunch of idiots most of the time.
Yeah.
Like I feel like people are so bad at explaining it, because the way it comes off a lot of times is you meet an editor for the first time and that editor just goes, "Wow, I have only just met you, but I would like to bother looking at your portfolio and keeping in touch." And it's like, that is so rarely the case unless you are being introduced by one of the people they work closely with. That's not going to, like, you're not going to meet a Marvel editor and have that happen. But, maybe if you're already established with X creator and they're with you and they're like, "Hey, this person is amazing. You got to check out their portfolio." Then maybe the editor will be like, "Oh, hey, sure. Let's figure it out."
I'm trying to think a number of the posts because suddenly everybody's talking about barcon and everyone is against barcon in all the conversations. But one of the common things is people like they're giving great advice, like you don't take your portfolio to the bar. Nobody wants to see it there. I'm trying to think, have you ever I've never seen anyone bring their portfolio to the bar. Like I've gone to the
No.
San Diego Comic Con a ton. I've gone to the rooftop bar at the Hyatt many, many times. It's now been all remodeled and jacked up. That nobody came walking in with their portfolio. I don't even know who that is talking about. People go in whatever suit they can afford and they're drinking vodka soda and there is nobody's like lugging around a portfolio. I don't even understand who they're talking about there.
No, I mean, the only thing I can think of is just talking about people who are, I guess, maybe super amateur. Like they're not even at the point where they should be showing off their portfolio. Like maybe people like that. But what usually happens is you'll talk to that editor. And a lot of times these are like the Saturday night of the show or sometimes
Mhm.
the Friday night. It depends how many days the show is, but it's usually Friday or Saturday,
Yeah.
sometimes both. And usually what happens is maybe you'll have met the person earlier, you see him at the party, you remind that, like, "Oh, so yeah, yeah." And then they might say, "Oh, bring your portfolio to the booth tomorrow."
Yes, exactly. It's done that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a portfolio thing. It's I mean, the thing that I always hear over and over, and I'm curious if you had the same, is nobody's showing up with their portfolio like lugging around these pieces, going, "Hire me, look at my work."
Yeah.
Instead, what people get annoyed by are pests, people
Yeah.
who are they've done the 7 appearances and they're on like appearance number 15, and at this point, they're kind of stalking the editor around and going,
Mhm.
"Hey, who'd be good doing a comic book for you? Me." And I've heard
Yeah.
several aspiring writers who have never broken into the big two do stuff like that. And it's like
Mhm.
they think they're being witty, but nobody is laughing, and the editor is just annoyed, and they tend to be avoided.
Yeah, I mean, I hear stories like that all the time. You also hear this might even be more common is the person who got the anthology piece at the big two.
Right.
And then it's like, "Oh, I'm already in. When's the next gig? When's the next gig? When can I, like, hey, is there another anthology coming out, or like, hey, you need like a one shot, or like, oh, I saw this like movies coming out. Maybe you need like one of these characters is a one shot, or like, oh, I got this great idea. I did this thing. Maybe it was like like a Black Widow anthology or something. And they're like, I've been thinking about it, and you know how much I love Black Widow. I did that short for you guys, and You know, I have all these like Black Widow ideas, and you know, I figure the annual or one shot's got to be coming up, and you know, I can send them to you. You know, you know, you get that kind of
Yes.
energy going, and that happens. Or you will even get people who flat out. I have heard stories of people flat out seeing an editor at a show, being like, "Hey, how come I'm not getting any more work?"
Yes. Yeah.
You know, or like, what's it going to take to get me on another book? Who do I got to talk to? What do I got to do? Like that kind of stuff.
I had a writer come up when I was sitting with an editor out of the, like, we were having a conversation and there was no opening. Like I think we were at dinner, and the guy comes up and goes, how many drinks do I need to buy you to get another story? I haven't gotten a story I need a story. I will buy you whatever drinks you want. What drinks do you want? I will buy you drinks. And the editor's like, get me the fuck out of here. And that seems more common. It's what's weird is a lot of the advice I'm seeing right now is all geared toward artists.
Yeah.
And I would say, at least from the people who come off super desperate and weird at these cons, I would go, it would be 90% writers to 10% artists. It's not the artists running around doing this.
Yeah, a lot of time, artists at shows, especially if they're longer shows, usually miss at least one or two of the nights going out because they're finishing up their you know, convention sketches in their room or things like that, or they actually have to keep up with their schedule, so they're actually working on pages and things like that in a way that like writers kind of have an easier time blowing off a weekend, you know, unless they're doing shows consistently. Then that's when you see like writers also being like, you know, like, because there are some of the bigger writers, they do shows like 20 plus shows a year.
Yeah.
And they can't not be writing in their rooms that weekend because they're just constantly traveling. But I mean, the networking thing, it's all over the place because for the most part, writers and artists usually can't actually help you get gigs. And it takes a long time, I think, for people to realize that. Because as great as it is to maybe, you know, like get some like, oh, you know, Scott Snyder, Tom King, Donny Cates or whatever, they know me, and that they're not the ones that ultimately make the decisions. They might put a good word in for you. It's not a bad thing. But ultimately, it's the editor who makes that call.
Right.
You know, and it's like networking with those kind of people, but you also have to have stuff out, you know, to show like actual, you know, comics that are done, that kind of thing. It all takes time. There's no shortcut to networking, and you also have to be a personable person, and all that helps. But yeah, like you were saying, a lot of the people who might be giving advice or this and that, like I've been with them at BarCon, or I've waited outside the party that you couldn't get into and seen them, or even seen them get into that party and be really excited they got into the party that other people couldn't get into.
Yeah. I mean, first off, barcon feels like a fancy word for just the drinks that are happening after the show and the private parties. But it also, I mean, it feels like mostly advice, which I'm not seeing a lot of people give this advice, is basic kind of human social skills. Like don't come off desperate. Don't annoy somebody who's already in a conversation with someone else. Don't sidle in and try and just insert yourself into a conversation that appears to be serious. When I've taken people out at shows, one of the reasons why I've been able to take a lot of writers and editors, and people know this, is that I can promise them that I'm going to take them to someplace with a door that they can't be interrupted by. So if they want some nice drinks, something a little quiet, something where they are not going to get barraged by anyone else, I can deliver that. That's part of what I do. That sounds actually kind of sneaky when I say it that way, but it's just like, hey, how would you like to have dinner and good food and good drinks and not deal with any rest of this shit? And that seems to be very appealing. And if you're trying to network, I mean, you know, offering something like that, and to be on the level, not any kind of creepy secondary goal, seems to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I'm pretty sure it was like Scott Snyder with his family at, like, you know, after a con, just trying to have dinner.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and people come up and just be like, "Here's Scott Snyder," and it's just like, what are you doing? It's like one thing that is good advice, not just in comics but anywhere, is
All this advice is good anywhere.
yeah, don't interrupt people when they're like having dinner, especially when it's like with their family. Like, what are you doing?
Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just basic, again, basic social skills seems to be the core thing here. There's been a few pieces of advice. One of which is, hey, we need a party that is alcohol free. Would that work?
Uh, 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 I don't think like there's been something really infantilizing about this conversation.
Yes.
There's a lot of like 40, 50-year-old men who are kind of being like, who needs that when we got soda pop and laser tag? And like stuff like that. It's like, what the hell? Just, you can be adults. Like, I don't get this idea. Like, look, I'm not trying to be disparaging of people with an alcohol problem, and I understand that. I'm not trying to be like, suck it up, person getting over an addiction and be surrounded by your downfall.
No, sure.
But for most people, you should be able to go out in an environment where people are having drinks. And if you do drink, you should be able to have a responsible amount of drinks. And that this shouldn't be that hard. It feels like the way this is being talked about is like, look, we're all going to the oven burner party, and I know how tempting it is to just put your hand on that hot oven burner, but just don't. And then the next day being like, oh my God, did you see all those people just putting their hand on the hot oven burners? What the hell? It's like, no, just be people, be normal people.
Be normal people.
And that's not happening. And it's weird that it's not happening.
I gave some advice actually on the show a while back saying, if you're going to a con and you're a creator, make sure you're drinking water and make sure you're eating, and don't just drink because hot temperatures, especially if you're in San Diego during that time period, it's hot. Maybe you're not used to it. It's humid. You're in a stuffy convention hall. You get hammered a lot easier than you realize. So make sure you eat and drink. And I had a fairly large number of people go, man, that's really good advice. Thanks for that. And I'm like, where were your parents when you were growing up? Did no one give you the advice of like eat with alcohol? Like how are you learning about this when you're 35, 40, 50? That this is too late in life to know this lesson.
Well, there's also people like, I wish I was kidding. Again, the same thing where they're just like, I don't normally drink water. I drink like soda and crap. And then they're like, and then I got to get high or else I forget to eat. Like, I've heard that. And you're just like, but like, and then you just tell people, you're just like, you have to not do that. Like, you have to like get high all the time. I don't care. But like, when you're telling me things like, if I don't get high, I forget to eat. It's just like, there's a lot you got to work on, buddy. And that's not the fault of this culture of going to barcon. That's a you thing.
Yeah.
Get you figured out. Like,
a lot of this seems like a you thing. I mean, there shouldn't be environments set up to do this kind of stuff. And people, but again, I mean, if you're having to give the advice, and I know tech companies who would say things like, hey, if you're going to the after parties, a good test is to see if you can remember the capital of the state you live in. And if you've forgotten it, you may want to slow down your drinking. Just don't be a fucking idiot. What are you?
Yeah.
That's a dumb test.
It's just wild. It is wild.
How are you driving around? I don't know.
No, it's crazy. I mean, but yeah, all like that's ultimately at the crux of this is all the cool shit is happening that you don't know about.
Yeah.
I've gone to dinner with creatives away from all of this and some big names and whatnot, and it's like you go. And that's the cool thing. Like people don't want to be loitering in like, a hotel lobby. Like, I don't know. You kind of see, I feel like every one of these if you're going to like barcon, like Baltimore, I feel is a very like barcon. There's like a couple of hotel bars that people go to in Baltimore. I think it's really just the one. The same one that they do like the Ringo Awards in tends to be like the one that everyone goes to.
It's not the Marriott. Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, go ahead.
I forget, but you know as soon as you get down there.
Yeah.
But there's always that like there's like the loser section before you get in there of like the people who are like hanging out, and they might kind of know each other from like the indie scene, and they're like talking about like trying to be like like, oh, did you see that, like I think I saw a Valiant editor walk in there, like what are we gonna do, like that kind of thing going on. And that's also wild to me. It's like you got to walk, you do the march past like the losers, and then you get into the main scene, and there's different people that are broken up in different cliques, and a lot of it's just to hang out with friends. Like, believe it or not, like someone like Dean Haspiel usually does Baltimore. He's usually down at the barcon hanging out with friends and stuff, and it's just like a social thing. Yeah. He's not looking to hit people up, for work or something, but if he sees buddies or something like that's fine. Like, there's a lot of people use it for that.
Yes. San Diego Comic-Con has a similar thing where you've got the Hyatt, and you have the Hyatt bar on the ground floor, the kind of the lobby bar. And that's where a lot of people hang out. And it's the indie people. It's people trying to break in. Unfortunately, this is all like high school. You've got the loser clique, and then you have the slightly more popular, and then you have the super popular, and then you have the rich kids. I mean, these cliques develop, which is another thing I didn't see kind of discussed in all this, no barcon stuff that went on over the last week. It really is cliques. It's different groups of people, and everybody wants to get into the next level. And so they're trying to kind of debate tricks to do it. And maybe if there's just an easier way, but I remember pointing out to some editors in San Diego that, hey, you don't have to go through the lobby to get to the elevators to get to the rooftop bar, which is where you actually want to go. If you are kind of sneaky about it, you can go around the side, go to the pool, and then come in the back and then go up. And then you can dodge going through the gauntlet of the hotel lobby bar. I now gave a bunch of suggestions for people to kind of stake out a different area, but it's terrible because people would hang out in that lobby bar and just wait to see people go by and then pounce on them. And then that's the problem. It's less the alcohol. I think if you took all the alcohol away, first of all, it would solve nothing because people would just find a way to get alcohol somewhere else. They've tried dry parties before, and everyone just basically tries to get the hell out of that party as fast as possible so they can get to the party with the drugs and the alcohol.
Yeah, there's never buzz for a dry party. Like, no. And again, it's very infantilizing. Like, do you really want like a publisher being like, like, hey guys, come to the Marvel party. It's, free bowling and all the pizza you can eat. Like, who the hell? Like, it's like, I'm an adult.
Well, I like 5 years ago, or I don't know. Recently, I think it was either Marvel or DC, but I'm pretty sure it was Marvel. Did the drink ticket routine, and that's a good way to make your party lame. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants drink tickets. It doesn't work anyway because everybody figures out who's handing out the drink tickets and then goes and gives that person drinks. So they'll just give you a long roll of tickets. I mean, the whole thing is stupid. Open bar is where it's at. If you're a big publisher, got to have an open bar.
Yeah, I think even Lion Forge had an open bar for a little bit at the last party they did before they were absorbed into Oni. But that was fun. I just mostly talked to like Shannon Wheeler and a couple of other people. It was a good time.
You're right. It's infantile. It is. People need to be responsible what they drink. Nobody should be carting around their portfolio, their artist portfolio, and they're not doing that anyway. But again, I just can't quite understand who some of this advice is for. But I guess people need it. Here's the thing. I find this all stupid, but the fact that there are people who are liking, retweeting, and really in on this makes me think that there's some basic education needs to happen. Like does as Ron Mars did a thread here, Jim Zub did a thread. I saw a bunch of other people have pulled into this. I felt like Jim Zub did a good job of kind of describing, because he basically said what you said, which is, it's not a place where you get work on the spot, but it is a place where you network and you make career friends. And, so it's like, It was my experience to run the gamut. Friendships formed, good impressions made, but I've also seen people unleash awkward, embarrassing, career-ending moves. It's both. It comes down to you.
Yeah, I had one creator I know try to introduce me to someone else, and it was horrifically embarrassing for everyone involved because they were wrecked.
Mhm.
Um, and this same person has done a lot of other embarrassing things. I remember there was one show where they're trying to get water out of a thing, like
Mhm.
there's a big jug, and ended up spilling the whole jug all over the
Nice.
floor, ice like everywhere. Just stuff like that. Really insanely embarrassing things. But I have gotten the start of work through barcon.
Sure.
I one of my books, I definitely, I didn't get the gig there, but I talked to someone there and was like, hey, I had a couple of, different ideas. And what do you think would be the best one for, you guys? And they were like, oh, this one. And that's what I pitched and got picked up.
Yeah.
So, like, that's not, like, it's not, the way people are talking about it is so black and white, where it's just like, you will never get work going to barcon.
That's just not true.
Yeah, it's absolutely not true, and it's also not how people conduct it. Usually, if you're not cool enough to go to some of the bigger parties or some of the smaller, intimate parties with different publishers, you usually go to dinner with friends, or maybe a creator you like that you've built up a friendship with over the years. You'll grab dinner with a group of people or things like that, and then after that's all done, and maybe you have drinks or you don't, then you figure out, because then over the night evolves,
Right.
and the cool people are aware of that, where it's just like people kind of pick up like, oh, well, turns out this party's a dud. Everyone's actually going here, and
Mhm.
people like that. That's more how this kind of stuff works, and I feel like it's very disingenuous because everyone knows this and they're not talking about it. But there is inevitably at the bigger shows like New York Comic Con, there's always like a well advertised, like, here's a creator connection. We're all going to meet at a bar, and we're all going to meet each other, and that's where all the losers go. In the hopes that maybe one pro will have pity and stop by to say hi to everyone and keep doing what you're doing. And
Well,
but yeah,
they will pay people, like they will pay pros to go to those things and show up
yeah,
and make an appearance, and it's networking, and it's usually sponsored by someone. I think any networking event that's sponsored by someone has very limited chance of success.
for sure.
I mean, it's. I think maybe the question people need to ask themselves is, what are you there for? Are you there to meet some creators, have some drinks, have a good time? Is that what you're there for?
Mhm.
If that's the goal, then forget what the cool parties are, the loser, or whatever. Just if you're hanging out with people you like, you're having a good time. The
Yeah,
end. You're good. If your
absolutely.
if your goal is to network and get work, you have to understand that it's, like you said before, it's a long process. It's not something you're going to accomplish in one night. Maybe there's incredible luck that happens in the right place, right time, but you can't count on that.
Yeah,
And the right answer is just play it cool. Don't be a pest. Don't get drunk. Uh, be helpful. Be somebody people want to hang around with, and you will get networking opportunities. If I mean, I told the story kind of earlier of sitting with a couple editors and somebody coming by, and editors like diving below the table to like grab something out of the purse, and one ran to the bathroom because they just didn't want to be spotted because they knew that the
yeah,
person was going to pester them. I mean, have you
yeah.
ever had anything like that?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, when you're hanging out with some of the cooler kids, it's there's always that, like, oh my God, you see so and so waiting in the lobby, what a loser, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I've had an instance where there was someone at the bar that, like, universally everyone was like, oh God, this guy, and I gave a few people the heads up as I'm leaving, some people are going in, and I'm just like, hey, so and so's in there, and they're like, thank you,
Yeah.
and it's good because if you get that heads up, it's a lot easier to go, like, hey, how you doing? I got a whole cool, see you later, and you keep
Yes.
going. But sometimes if you're caught off guard, who's really good with that is Charles Soule. That
Yes.
is an like he could have a whole master's class on blowing people off.
Jesus.
I have seen this man. He's just excellent. He just ends the conversation when he's ready for it to go. Like I've seen it so many times. Yeah, the handshake, like, hey, get you out of there. Great seeing you. Bye. And that's it. And more people should develop that skill set.
Well, maybe.
You know. Well, I mean, yes,
I hear
maybe.
you.
Yeah, no.
It,
Because you see, I'm mostly saying that because you see all these people that do things where they're like, oh my God, I didn't know what to do. And I just had a miserable evening because people kept talking to me. I didn't want to talk. It's like, your happiness is worth a little something. If you're really, truly miserable, like, you figure there's ways to do it that aren't like super insulting, like
oh yeah.
and you move on. Like that's more the skill I'm talking about. But I mean,
You know, one thing though, along these lines. So with all these threads and everything, it seems like it's blurring the line of who, you mentioned kind of people like, oh my God, that guy, avoid that guy. They're not talking about fans or customers. These are not the pests. These are not the people that they're trying to avoid. I mean, I'm trying to think, generally speaking, all the times that I've been with different creators at events, if a customer or a fan comes over and goes, hey, I just love your work. It's great. I really love this issue. 9 times, I'm trying to think if I've ever heard a creator be annoyed by that. Generally, they're very pleased. They're gracious. Yeah. They're thankful. The people that are the pests are the up and coming creators, not the fans. And I think some of the conversation seem to aim it at, you fans are being pests, but that's not the case. It's all about people who are trying to get into comics.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of missing pieces here. Like, if you do end up getting introduced in a way at a convention where you get an editor's email or something like that, and they genuinely seem interested in talking to you, here's some pro tips that, for whatever reason, this is part of the barcon conversation, but it's not being discussed. Is you wait till like at least the middle of the week after before you reach out, because too many people get so excited they'll like email the person at the show or like Monday.
I mean, I've watched people get an email and go, I'm going to write them right now. Like they got less than 5 minutes ago. They're sitting at the table going, I'm going to tap out an email here where I'm at the bar. I'm like, don't do it. But again, we learned this with dating when we were 14, right? I mean, this was like, the girl, the boy, whoever it happens to be, gives you their number. You don't immediately call their number. You wait a bit. You don't want to seem desperate.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like you got to wait. And then there's also just the practical reason of they're probably, if it's a longer show, they might not be checking all their email for like 3-4 days. And they're backlogged, and you're just not, they're going to see, like, great meeting you, and be like, I got to catch up on actual work. So let me go through there. But if it's like the middle of the week after, then it's like, okay, maybe you have a shot. And then you can do follow-ups, but you got to have weeks, if not a month or so, spacing them out. You don't want to be following up all the time, especially if they're giving you some sort of directive of like, hey, check back in like 3 or so months or something like that. Then don't follow up a month later just being like, hey, I know you said that, give you some more time, but like, just want to keep being on your radar. And
be cool. I mean, let's say you're a popular DC writer and you said, I'll do an interview with you, Perch, but then months go by. I'm not going to be pestering you every week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll give you some time, Scott Snyder. It'll be okay. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that'd be a great one. No, it'll be good. But but no, you see that kind of stuff, and then you see, there's, obviously there's also the bit of up and comers. Sometimes this overlaps with fans, but it's a lot of up and comers who get obsessed with like, I gotta find this creator at
Yeah.
the bar because I want to be their friend. And like, that's another aspect of it that's awful.
Yeah.
But that's almost its own video. Like there's,
Well, that's the plot of Not Another Teen Movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. It's but yeah, like there are certain creators, let's for example's sake here, let's just call them Donnie Cates,
Sure.
where there's like a cult around this person, and people will be like at the show who are fans, some up and coming creators, but also fans who are on like Kate's watch.
Yeah.
And it turns into like, oh, I hear Donnie's going to be at this party later. We gotta figure out a way, and then maybe we'll be friends with Donnie Cates. And like, I've actually seen people say things like, like Donnie liked my tweet. I'm like one step closer to that, like Donnie Cates friendship.
Yeah. That's weird.
It's very weird.
Donnie Cates thinks that's weird, and your friends think that weird. Don't be that guy.
Yes.
I mean, so it seems like, again, there's a lot of rules. It seems like don't be desperate, don't get drunk, don't lose control of yourself. I mean, we haven't even wandered into the other part of barcon, which I think a part of why this got started, which is the kind of the assault and the various sexual problems that come out of these things. But those are often linked back to alcohol and kind of leveraging work.
Yeah, a few other things that I think are important in terms of that, which I also don't think a lot of people mentioned at all, which I don't know why, because it's really important and super basic stuff, is if you're in a city that you're not from and you're not familiar with, I don't care if you're there for a comics convention or anything else. If you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to be surrounded by people and alcohol and potentially drugs, go with a friend, you idiots.
Yes.
Like
protect yourself. Yeah.
You go with a group of people, you go with at least one other person. At least one other person. Usually you go with, 2 or 3 other people. If a bunch of you get dinner and then you want to go to barcon after, make sure like most of you are going there. Check in with each other. Make sure you leave together. Don't leave by yourself, because you're going there to, interact, mingle. You don't have to be there forever.
Right.
You don't be there till they close out.
Yeah, you shouldn't be there forever.
Yeah. And here's another thing. This is to help the losers who are listening to this. And I'm being flippant and funny. I don't actually think you're losers, but no cool person goes to a bar, like goes to the one party and stays the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to bounce.
You got to bounce around. You got to be there for X amount of time. Then be like, I got to do another thing. And that's a better impression than being like, oh God, this up and coming creator somehow got into the Marvel party and is still drinking at the bar. And we're like closing out. Like, ooh,
don't be that person.
Yeah. Don't ever do that. But going back a little bit to the loser mixer that usually happens at these things is, again, being flippant, because there is an importance there, because it's all baby steps. If you're an up and coming creator, like let's say you're a writer or an artist and you're just trying to break in, those are actually good for you, because if you don't have a comic out yet, that's where you meet other people that are interested. And that's where a writer might be able to meet an artist and, kind of be like, oh, I'm kind of doing this thing. I'm interested in this thing. Like, oh, maybe we'll be able to collaborate. And that's like your stepping stone. And then you get comics made. Then you can kind of elevate yourself to a point where you're like, hey, look, I have a thing.
Yeah.
Look at this comic. I'm holding this comic. Because that's the best business card you have in comics, is a comic that's made.
I mean, that's great advice, because I think I meet a lot of people who want to go immediately, always within San Diego Comic-Con context, to we want to go to the Hyatt rooftop bar, or more recently, we want to go to the Andaz and the rooftop of the Andaz, and we want to do that. that's not, I mean, you can do it, but first off, what are you trying to do when you're there? There's not
Yeah.
an amazing show. It's mainly just a bunch of the more popular, senior, successful creators are up there, certainly. Brian Michael Bendis is not showing his flaming sword swallowing trick, and Sean Murphy is not doing his card tricks or anything like that. They're just drinking there. If you're going to go up, you're going to have a good conversation that could be fun, but you're not. I mean, it's there's not like an amazing new show that's happening up on the rooftop bar that you're missing. J. Scott Campbell is not jumping in the pool. Oh, maybe. I mean, there's just people are sitting around drinking. So take your time getting up there, meet the people you need to meet in order to network, and don't worry so much about being in the right place at the right time, because if you're there with nothing to say, you're just going to be kind of standing against a wall drinking alone, which is just depressing.
Which is why you go with a group of people, because worst comes to worst, 3 or 4 of you grab a table or you find a corner and you hang out, and then you can mix and mingle a bit. But a lot of people in those situations, this is where you embarrass yourself. This is where people, make mistakes, are like, oh, I'm here by myself drinking, oh, Scott Snyder's there, talking to, maybe it's like him and Tom King, and John K. Snyder's there because everyone keeps thinking he's Scott Snyder. And, or groups of people like that, are all hanging out. And then you're just by yourself walking over and you're just like, hi,
buddies. Who wants a drink?
It's like, you don't know. That's not, it's awkward. BarCon isn't, okay, here it is. Here's another thing that I don't think is getting talked about properly right now is BarCon isn't where you first meet someone.
Yeah.
BarCon is, I see, this creator I love, or someone like a Tom King, Scott Snyder, Charles Soule, Michael Morici, anyone like that. Oh, I've met them at cons a few times. I've purchased things from them at their booth. We have a kind of rapport. Then you see them at BarCon, and then it's not weird when you're like, oh, hey, and then they're like, oh, hi, how you doing? Thanks for coming by the booth earlier. Yeah. You're going to come to I'm doing a panel tomorrow. You're going to come, like that. That's more what it is. That's not, you do not want to meet these people for the first time there, and they don't want to meet you for the first time there.
No, I mean, unless you're the bartender.
Yes,
you're fine. You don't want to do that. But again, people shouldn't have any illusions about what's going on there. If you're an up-and-coming creator and you've never really enjoyed this scene before or anything else, make it fun for yourself. As you're saying, Joe, grab some friends, have some drinks as a small group, have some good food. If you're new to the city, go find something cool there that you haven't seen before, and go eat and drink there. And it's a good time to make your way into these things as a group. But there's not, at no point does CB Cebulski, kind of clap his hands and ask for attention in the Hyatt rooftop bar and say, I've got a golden ticket, and the person who comes up and chats me up the best will be the new writer of the Avengers. That's not how it works. You're not going to get that opportunity at these bars. So just enjoy the experience, and you're probably going to break in a lot faster than if you're desperate to try and make something happen at this con. It's unlikely to happen anyway. Go make friends.
Yeah, and here's another pro tip, since you brought up CB. CB is a sociable person who understands his role in the company. If you come up to him and act like you know him or something like that, he's going to be polite back to you. That does not mean he wants to work with you.
Yeah.
He's gonna, if you go up to him and you're like, oh, hey, CB, how's it going? This is great. Like, he will respond in a polite way, like, oh, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. That is not that next step to like, oh man, I'm in with CB. That means like, I'm going to find some way to get his email, and I'm going to email him on Monday and be like, I'm the guy that said hi and you said hi back at the bar. That's not, don't do that.
Ron Mars gives us advice, which he gives 2 pieces of advice. I think the first one is solid. The second one gets a little confusing. So the first one says, you don't have to drink alcohol.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Right. I mean,
yes.
No, of course not. You can drink. You can do whatever you want. Nobody's really gonna
Yeah,
make
stay
fun.
sober and be a people watcher. That's fun too.
Yeah, Tom King does do this thing where he will walk around the room and then basically inspect everyone's drink, and then will laugh at you if you're not drinking a hard enough drink. But other than that, you'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But then Ron, his next piece of advice says, if you're pumping an editor or pro for information on how things work or craft or frankly anything, buy them a drink. I mean,
it's not bad advice. The advice should be like offer something. Yeah.
maybe those two shouldn't have just been right next to each other. And then also maybe don't, if you're going to one of these parties, my advice, don't pump anyone for anything there.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's more of like a mean girl situation where, you're with your clique and you're looking and you're being like, oh, look who came here, or like that kind of stuff. And then you could be like, oh, well, why are you saying that? What'd they do? And they'll dish.
That's true. Yeah, that always checks out.
Or some fun things I like to do are to make jokes that makes everyone very uncomfortable. Not those kind of jokes, but like jokes about, like, oh yeah, remember when this like editor did this horrible thing?
Yeah.
And then they all laugh and then go like, please don't say that too loud. I'm desperately trying to get work there. I've been in that position where I made a pretty good joke and the people there were just like, don't, please, we're trying to work with these people. So don't do that.
Oh, Joe. There's this piece of advice. Don't get drunk. Don't break stuff. I mean, yeah, but when is that advice ever not good advice? Like, is there ever a situation where it's like, in this particular party, you can get drunk and break stuff?
Yeah, that seems odd. Again, there's a lot of this that just seems like normal stuff we should all be aware of. It's deeply weird and disturbing that it's not.
It is. Why? So, do you have any theories as to why? Like, a lot of people have jumped on this, and a lot of but don't get drunk and break stuff does not feel like advice for grown adults to give other grown adults. I think why do you have any theories as to why this seems to be confusing?
I think ultimately a lot of people don't know what they're doing or saying. I think part of the problem here too is you want to come off like a good person, that you're giving good advice, but you don't actually want to say anything too meaningful or do anything too drastic in a way that will, hurt your position. You don't want to say anything that makes it sound like you're targeting a specific sex pest or something that's still working in the industry that everyone wants to get work from. Yeah, right. So you end up getting these very bland, vanilla kind of pieces of advice to let everyone know you're a good person. But don't worry, I'm not going to try to rock the boat or anything. And I think that's kind of what causes us to have this not super helpful information going around, especially because the way like social media and Twitter and all that works, no one is seeing these threads and going like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that before. I'm going to really have to keep that in mind in the future. I mean, sure, there are some people that do, as you have mentioned, like things like, oh, eating, I should eat at a show. But I think ultimately, for the most part, no one's actually taking this advice. It's all a circle jerk of everyone being like, oh, yeah, I agree. And let me try to one-up you by agreeing even more or being more drastic. And it's just a constant pissing contest of someone being like, hey, guys, barcon's not great. And then someone has to come in and be like, not only is barcon not great, it's a bad thing. And then someone has to come in being like, barcon's not just a bad thing, it should be outlawed. Like, that's just like, it's...
But everybody's going to go to the bar next con.
Yeah, or the... the weed dispensary before the bar, where, when you go to, Emerald City, and you can vouch for this,
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of creators at those dispensaries by the show, and then they got to hit those up after the show and then go to the bar.
There's at least a room. Well, I believe that during a convention, not for comics, but another place, they were doing these pop-up dispensaries outside the convention hall.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Why not? One more piece. I want to ask you one more thing on this because I'm seeing this advice around a lot too, and I admit I'm slightly confused by it. It says, and I'm just picking on Ron. A lot of people have said this. If you're feeling shy or awkward, it's okay to come out and say that. That kind of honesty tends to put people at ease. My experience, at least, is that tends to put people more on edge. If you are shy or awkward, it's okay certainly to be shy or awkward. Absolutely. Announcing it is a bad idea.
Yeah, that's a little weird. I feel like if you're shy or awkward, again, this all goes back to go with a group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
the best advice. Yeah.
If you are shy or awkward and you go to one of these things by yourself, you're going to have a miserable time.
Exactly. You're going to have a bad time. And I think if you go up to a creator, I mean, hopefully the creator is gracious about it. If you do say, I am shy or awkward, but you're going to make it more awkward by announcing that you're awkward. I'm just throwing that out there. I think it's like you said, the best thing to do is go with some friends, get a group of people who know you, who can help kind of be your support group, and just try and have a good time. There's a lot of conversation around here around barcon. You shouldn't obsess if you're not able to get into the most popular parties. If you're brand new to this industry, you're not going to get into the most popular parties.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the network in order to tell you to do that. So have fun. I'll go back. Some advice that Zub gave that I thought was good. Zub said that at the beginning, he wasn't invited to some of the more popular parties. He didn't know how to do it. So he had a group of friends, kind of like you're saying, would have a nice dinner. They would chill and they would go and start doing karaoke. And that became a tradition. They would kind of do that. And he talks about doing karaoke at Emerald City. It was certainly... people got to know that Zub and friends were going to do karaoke at Emerald City. And weirdly, unbeknownst to Zub, that his karaoke party became a popular party by nature of just something cool that wanted to go on and people wanted to go to that. That's just how it goes. And but it started from, I'm going to try and have a good time and not be a crazy asshole.
Yeah. And then eventually you get to a certain personality type where you can host these different parties that people are fighting to get into, like, was it Kieran Gillen and Jamie McLeavy, I think, would do these like WICDIV like DJ parties where they would like, DJ their own sets and stuff like that. And people would be like, oh, I got to get into that. That was another popular one. But, and some parties aren't designed for that kind of networking, like to meet an editor. Some of those parties are just like you were saying, Jim Zub doing karaoke, Kieran and Jamie DJing, like, it's a whole big web of things. Like there's so many things going on, especially with these bigger shows. There's so many kind of things. If you're there for karaoke, again, these are purely networking in the sense of just getting to know people. And it would also be awkward if you're an awkward person coming there by yourself, trying to be friends with people you don't know. Like again, just basic stuff.
Yes, basic stuff. I mean, it comes down to know your limits. Just try and have a good time. We didn't touch on any kind of the other. Definitely, there are some people there who do not know their limits, and they use this for nefarious purposes, whatever it happens to be. But I mean, generally speaking, go down. There's going to be drinks. You're not going to eliminate that, and try not to be crazy. I mean.
Yes.
And maybe just don't obsess over it. If you're not invited to the popular party, go make your own popular party. And that's not that hard to do, actually. Many of these places have great places to eat and drink, and you can have a good time. And you'd be shocked at how many creators, editors, other people might want to go out and have dinner and drinks with you if you're offering something kind of fun.
Absolutely.
Well, Joe, thank you very much. So I guess I'll see you at the bar next convention.
Yeah, no, Emerald City. I'm hoping to be out there. Are you going to be in New York?
I hope so. I'd like to come out there and
Yeah,
wander around and go to bars. Yeah.
that'd be nice. I gotta pay for my pro pass. I got one. I'm assuming I usually get one, but it was probably easier this year because no one's they're not getting as many people because
Yeah.
everyone's afraid something horrible is gonna happen. Which hey, it might. But
On that
until then,
on that hopeful note, well, thank
yeah,
you, Joe, and we'll see you at the bars.
yeah. Have one for me, folks.
There you go.